Good morning and welcome to Financial Friday, your end of week financial update from your credit union. We are so excited to have you here with us today. Good morning. I am Crystal Parker, the Financial Education and Community Outreach Ambassador for the Credit Union, and I am delighted to be with you today. Today, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into a topic we started talking about last week when it comes to debit cards and credit cards, because this is a common thing that comes up with having cards, disputes and frauds. So what are they? How do we understand them? Give me one moment and I'll stop my screen share and we can start talking. So it's not uncommon at the credit union for us to get messages on digital banking, receive phone calls, or have members come into the branch because they are concerned that they have fraud on their account, or perhaps they'd like to dispute a charge. So I thought it might be helpful to kind of talk through some of this because I think sometimes, or I get the sense from some of the staff and from members from conversations that there's some confusion about some of this. So let's chat a little bit more today. So it's not uncommon for members to have someone, perhaps you have been a victim of fraud and somebody has obtained your card information and now they have used that to make purchases that you have not authorized. That is definitely fraud. That's unequivocal. We get that. Now, there is a process that we have to go through as a credit union to make sure, because part of it is we want to make sure that if we are refunding charges, that we're refunding the right things, that we have researched the information and hopefully figure out who is it that has obtained your information. How did this happen? Is this perhaps part of a larger breach? Is this affecting more members? So there's some research that has to be done because we're looking to understand this whole process. And when we're going through this, we have a very small team that does this. So it takes time and it's not an immediate thing. We are working through disputes and fraud reports as quickly as we possibly can. But then there's some other things that happen for members and they feel like this is something that's fraud, but it's not always fraud. So what is this? Well, let's say you have gone to a website. Perhaps it's a website that's new to you. You're not exactly sure if it's the most reputable website and you make a purchase. Well, then you realize this purchase is taking a long time to get here. Now, some of this could be the Amazon effect that many of us have. We're so used to that 2-day shipping. It's here in no time. I don't need to wait for a purchase to get here. Well, when you order from small businesses and they are a team of 1 or 2, maybe 3, a small team, packing up the items with lots of thought and care, this can take more than a couple of days to get to you. Perhaps they personally have to make a trip to the post office. Or perhaps you've ordered from a company that's overseas. These things take time. And there are times that members are frustrated waiting. Perhaps they didn't realize that this company was based in another country. Perhaps this country is based in East Asia, a very large country, and it takes a while to get here. And it's frustrating and disappointing. And I fully understand that. Full disclosure, I like to order some things from Japan. I have family there, so I've learned of products and goods that I really like. But I know that if I order something from Japan, it's going to take at least 3 or 4 weeks, upwards of 5 or 6 weeks to get here. Well, I'm used to that 2-day shipping from various businesses, and it's hard to wait. But some of these products are great and it's worth the wait. But I can't claim that it's fraud because I authorize this purchase to come from Japan and I have to wait for it to get here. And so I use as an example because there are members that are upset that it's taking time and they want to claim that it's a fraudulent website, but it's not. We as the individual consumer have authorized this merchant to make a purchase to deduct money from our account on our card, whether it's our debit card or our credit card, and we have to wait for the item to get here. Now, there are times that something happens. Perhaps the item got lost in transit. And I actually had that happen in February. I ordered an item mid-February, and I knew it was coming from Japan. I knew that it was going to take every bit of 4 weeks to get here. They'd given me an estimated delivery. That time came right at the pandemic, and the item wasn't here. They even sent me a message saying, your item will be delayed. If you do not get it by such and such date, let me know. Well, the second estimated delivery date came and went, and the item still was not here. I really wanted this to get here, but it wasn't. So I contacted the merchant, not the credit union, and the merchant said, I'm so sorry you've had to wait. Due to the coronavirus, we've had items get delayed in shipping. Sometimes these things are stuck in customs. I'm so sorry. If you would give us a few more weeks, or we can go ahead and cancel the item. I really wanted this thing to get here, so I allowed them a few more weeks. But a few more weeks came and went, and the item still wasn't here. So I reached out to the merchant again, not the credit union, and the merchant apologized profusely, canceled the item. The item never arrived. We still to this day have no idea where it is. But the merchant handled it. They immediately refunded the money. They would have refunded it a few weeks back if I had wanted them to, but I wanted to wait. I was willing to wait. And that's one of those things where I had to work with the merchant, not the credit union, over this. I personally had authorized this purchase. This merchant, was at the mercy of international shipping and what would happen. So I use it as an example of this is something that had to be worked out with the merchant. If an item arrives broken and not in the condition that you'd hoped, that's something to work out with the merchant. And so we frequently see members reach out because they're frustrated with the merchant and they just want us to fix it. We pride ourselves on member service as a credit union. We believe that people come first, and we want to fix as much as we can. But unfortunately, when it's a merchant, we can't fix what the merchant's doing. We can only change the way that we do business. And sometimes these stories of what happens with merchants can be a great example to us of things to do or not to do. So I think it's one of those things to think about. Now, something else when it comes to frauds and disputes is just being mindful of keeping an eye on your card, watching the transactions that occur. That transactions can take time to come out. Perhaps when the items are deducted out of your account, you might use a convenience store that's part of a larger chain. So you may have thought you went to Mini Mart, but it was Citgo's Mini Mart. And so the transaction's coming from Citgo. So you might think, I've never been to Citgo. I've only been to Mini Mart. This is fraud. So sometimes just being mindful that it can take a couple of days for a transaction to come out of your account and to show, but sometimes there's a different name that the company is processing the transactions out of. So it's not in fact fraud. So I think taking some time to look at some of those things can make a difference in trying to understand what's happening with your account. That it does take time for transactions to come out, especially as we talked about last week, when you have the option to run your transactions as debit or credit. Credit is safer for you, but it does take time to come out. So you may have gone to Walmart on Sunday, but you don't see it come out of your account until Tuesday. It doesn't mean that you went to Walmart on Tuesday and that there's fraud. It just means it took time for that transaction to come out of your account. So just be careful in not accusing a merchant of fraud. Sometimes maybe you have made a transaction and they mixed up the receipts, and as they're processing everything, something comes out incorrectly. Many merchants will fix it. Give them a chance, and you'll frequently hear us reach out to you and say, give the merchant a chance to fix it, because usually they will. And they can typically process those refunds a lot faster because we have to do research before we issue those refunds. So those are just some things to be mindful of. There's lots of businesses where you'll sign up for some of those free trials where it's free for 14 days, 30 days. And in the very teeny tiny print at the bottom of your disclosures, it'll note that if you don't cancel by the end of your trial, that you'll be charged a fee. Now, when that happens, it's not fraud. You've authorized them your card information. Perhaps it was through Google or the Google Store or the Apple Store or different things like that, or you had to input your information. You've authorized them when you agreed to this trial that if you don't cancel, you would then have to pay that amount. You might not want the service, but if you reach out to that merchant, more times than not, they'll refund the money because they understand you don't want the service and they're not going to make you pay for something you don't need. So in those instances, that's not fraud either. Give the merchant a chance to make it right. And sometimes they might even make it better that perhaps you had to pay a certain rate. You don't want to pay that much, and maybe they'll give you a discount to keep you on as a customer. So those are just some things to be mindful of, that not everything is fraud. Not everything is something to dispute, and some of it is something to work out with the merchant. We, as your credit union, are here to help you and to answer those questions. And sometimes we even, depending on the merchant, they'll provide us a phone number. So if you need that number to contact the merchant to make things right, we can give that to you. Now, I'll give a caveat, not all merchants provide that information, so we may not have it. And if we don't, we're sorry, but we can only provide what they're giving us. But I hope that is helpful and dispels some of the myths about disputes and frauds. And we would encourage you to just be really careful about the websites where you're using your card, particularly your debit card, because when you use your debit card, the Visa protection that you would get, say, with a credit card is different with a debit card. That, immediate kind of refund of it because there might be a dispute on it is done differently with debit cards versus credit cards. And so that's just something to be mindful of. And so if you're using a new website, it might be safer to use a credit card instead of your debit card so that you're not having this money deducted out of your account and gone while the research is being done. So just some ways to be safe and to keep your money secure when you're using things on the internet or new places in the community. I hope this was helpful, and we'll be back next Friday for another Financial Friday, and we hope to see you then. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday, and we look forward to chatting with you again next week.